Okay, here's the audience.
Scan your audience.
Yes, we have to know that you're all here in the audience.
I am not a robot.
I assume I'm on it, Helen. Am I on it now?
Yes.
Okay. And there's two people over there. And now Miss Helen.
Why do you do this?
Shh.
As a runner, having different aches and pains is very typical. And about 2.5 months ago, I experienced a different ache in my ankle that I hadn't felt before. After the pain continued to get sharper and sharper over time, I decided to go to the doctor, where I was then notified that I had 3 stress fractures. Today I'm going to inform you about this common injury known as stress fractures. Now some of you may know little about stress fractures, and so I encourage you to listen to the information I have today, and I hope it might broaden your understanding. As some of you may already know a lot about stress fractures. Perhaps you know someone who's had stress fractures, or perhaps you've had stress fractures yourself. But I also encourage you to listen with the hopes that it might broaden your understanding and knowledge of stress fractures currently. Since I was told about 2.5 months ago that I had 3 stress fractures in my ankle, each part of the recovery process has been a learning curve for me. I have had the opportunity to gather a lot of information from visiting with doctors, to doing research, to my own personal experience. Now, today I will be talking to you about 3 things: the cause of stress fractures, the recovery and rehabilitation of stress fractures, and how you can prevent stress fractures. Now, what is a stress fracture? A stress fracture is commonly known as an overuse injury, when the muscle becomes fatigued and then further causing the fracture in the bone. Now, in your body you have 2 types of bone. You have cancellous bone and cortical bone. While most remodeling occurs in the cancellous bone, 80% of your body is made of the cortical or compact bone. And the compact bone in your body has about an 8% slower metabolic rate than the cancellous bone, which is why we see stress fractures so commonly. Now, when we exercise, specifically doing long types of running on hard surfaces, we break down the osteoclasts, also known as the bone cells in our bone, and then we leave the osteoblasts to repair them. Now, when we break down the osteoclasts faster than we give the osteoblasts a chance to repair them, we leave our bones susceptible to stress fractures. Now, as you can see in this diagram, the middle part is your spongy bone, and the outer part is your compact bone. Now, when we break down the bone, we break down the spongy bone, which leaves the outer part with a very weak core, which is how we commonly get stress fractures. Now, an important thing to know are the signs and symptoms of stress fractures. Now, one of the hard things to know about stress fractures is that they're just like other injuries. The first sign is going to be pain. An important thing to look for in the pain is it's going to be sharp, and it's going to get sharper as time goes on. Another is swelling, and then the third is going to be redness in the area. So you know the signs and symptoms of a stress fracture. Now, how do you treat or rehabilitate stress fractures when you have them? The most important thing to do is to seek medical attention. When you go to seek medical attention, the first thing they're going to do to diagnose a stress fracture is to do an x-ray, a bone scan, or an MRI. And the most common way they diagnose them is through x-rays originally. Now, the reason they commonly do it through x-rays is because typically they can see it through x-rays first. So as you can see in this diagram, there's a stress fracture at the top of the leg, and there's another stress fracture down by the ankle. Now, if they couldn't see it in the x-ray, that's when they would revert to a bone scan or to an MRI. Now, the second part is the recovery process. The recovery process, like the rehabilitation process, is different dependent on every stress fracture. Typically, they're going to give you some type of a walking boot or an air cast, because most stress fractures occur in the lower leg to the foot. So if they were to give you some type of an air cast, The purpose of the air cast is to secure the ankle in place. And the straps wrap around to make sure that you can't move your ankle, which is going to prevent the stress fracture from continuing to get worse. Now, the next part is the rehabilitation process. Rehabilitation, just like recovery, is dependent on the severity of the injury. Now, the most common options are going to be time off and physical therapy. Now, typically the rehabilitation stage and recovery stage for stress fractures are longer in females due to the slower metabolical recovery rates of bones and their overall smaller bone mass. This is according to the Military Medicine Journal, last cited on June 25th, 2014. Now that you know how to treat them and you know the rehabilitation process, the most important thing to know about stress fractures is how to prevent them. Now, the most important thing to know about prevention is that stress fractures are a repeatable injury. It's very common once you have them to get them again, because the bone never fully recovers. Now, according to the Journal of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, last cited on June 27, 2014, it is important to be smart about how you train. Depending on how much you run, it could take 6 months to 12 months to get back to your full activity. Now, if you're smart, you set realistic goals. Don't try and expand your activity quickly in a short amount of time. Use proper equipment, such as shoes. Stay healthy, and the best rule of thumb, if it hurts, stop. And today we discussed stress fractures, what they are, treatment and rehabilitation, and the ways in which you can prevent them. Now, recovering from my stress fractures has not been an easy task at all. It has been daunting and painful at times. But I believe the toughest part is still ahead of me in the rehabilitation process. I feel that with my knowledge, I will be able to go through it smoothly and smart. I've learned that knowing about stress fractures and being smart about them is the best way that you can prevent them, and I hope that this information will help you to do the same.
All right, and here's our audience again. Oops. Me. That guy. And Miss Helen again. Goodbye.
I feel this has broadened my horizons on stress fractures.
I think so. It was about
My
7.5
knowledge has been
minutes.